Hello, strange people. In my quest to become some sort of Dartmoor Louis Theroux, I get to meet a lot of interesting Devon characters. Fungi experts, professors, letterboxers, film directors, Max Pipers, you name it. But there is one name that has been at the top of my list from very near the start. Rialobran, or Si as he's actually named, is what the kids would call the OG of Dartmoor YouTubing, and I watch all his vlogs religiously. They're funny, interesting, and most importantly, for me at least, they're really genuine. No clickbaiting or attention seeking, just a bloke out on the moors, sharing some laid-back musings in his distinctive West Country burr. And, of course, he's a real Dartmoor expert. And as I'm a bit of a stranger to the west side of the moor, I was delighted when he agreed to be my guide for a February walk around his local patch. Join us for a day out wandering the wild and misty moor. I can promise you a good trudge, some intriguing theories, a few laughs, and more than one weird experience of the kind only Dartmoor can provide. Welcome back to the Dartmoor podcast. Our walk began at the base of Cock's Tor, and Si confidently led the way despite the shroud of fog that enveloped the hills. I could tell he was a bit disappointed that I wouldn't be able to enjoy the vistas that his side of the moor had to offer, but he needn't have been, as the ghostly mist provided an atmospheric beauty of its own. Plus, it was a chance for him to unintentionally show off his skills. Despite the poor visibility, I didn't see him look at a compass all day, and we only glanced at the map once. With no landmarks to navigate by, this was a man who knew his way around by the contours of the land and by following his nose.
So George will be joining me today for a walk around this area of the moors. He doesn't know this area, and he needed a guide, and he thought I'd be able to guide him. He's strangely mistaken, but we'll find out as we go along.
Si, welcome to the Dartmoor podcast.
It's not a podcast.
My first question is, how far back do you and Dartmoor go?
How far back? Over 50 years.
All right, wow, yeah.
Yeah, over 50 years. Yeah, I used to come up with my paternal grandmother quite a lot. We used to wander around on the moors, and certainly my first memories are of Dartmoor and Bodmin Moor as well. We used to go up to Bodmin Moor with my parents. So yeah, I've always been a sort of moorland person.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd notice really, because I guess you're really young when you first got, but has it sort of changed a lot, Dartmoor, over 50 years? Have you noticed anything change?
There are a lot more people.
Yeah.
And a lot more traffic on the roads.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, not really.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of it in a way, isn't it? It's an unchanging landscape, I suppose. We scaled the slope of Great Staple Tor, and the impressive outcrops slowly materialised out of the mist like great granite brontosauruses. It was eerie and beautiful, with the cold wind freezing the fog where it condensed on the grass. We stopped to capture some footage for our respective YouTube channels, and Si recorded a vlog on the etymology of Staple Tor, while I rocked back and two on a Loganstone. I always feel very self-conscious attempting any vlogging myself, hence these overly scripted narrations which use words like hence. But it was great to see Si at work as he explained his theory. You'll have to head over to his channel to see if you haven't already. You've got quite a lot of... one thing you always come back to is like etymology and names and things on your channel. That's one of the things I'm always really interested in. Is that something you sort of research a lot? Is that like online research or reading, or is it just kind of musing on things and
It's a bit of both. I mean, I'm not fluent in Cornish, but yeah. I have a probably better than average understanding of it. Mm-hmm. And when I see a tour name, I was explaining to you earlier, Ant and I actually were on Bodmin Moor, and We climbed over Stowe Hill, which is obviously an English name, and then Sharp Tor, which is obviously an English name, and the next tour across the moor is Kilmar Tor, which is a Cornish name, and as I explained to you, it means the horse's back. And I wondered, because we're so close to Cornwall,
Yeah.
and you've got Brentor not very far away, which probably, well, I would say it was almost certainly from Bron, meaning hill, Tor. Similar to Brown Willie is Bron Winelli, and Brown Gelly, Bron Gelly. So you've got Brentor, which isn't far away, and you've got Brinzerbach below Brentor, which is a farm, and that's a Cornish name. It means below the little hill. So it seemed only logical to me that some of the tours may still have their original Celtic Cornish names.
Yeah, maybe the Tamar isn't as much of a border as sort of everyone makes out historically, and that sort of Dumnonia sort of thing is
for instance, the South Hams, they were still speaking Cornish in the South Hams in the 12th century.
Yeah.
So, that although it's sort of 900 years ago, it's not that far back. I mean, you've got the river Avon on Dartmoor that runs down to Averton, Gifford.
Yeah.
Well, Averton is the Avon part of it is Cornish. It means river.
Yeah, it's the river.
It's a river.
Yeah.
The Gifford is a Norman, I believe. But yeah, it's the Avon. So you've got them within Dartmoor already, and it just seems sensible to me, or it made sense to me that some of the tours, possibly, and some of the rivers definitely, keep their original Celtic or even Proto-Celtic names.
Yeah. And that, actually, the name Rialobran, is that even how you say it, Rialobran?
Yeah, Rialobran.
Rialobran, the Royal Raven?
Royal Raven or Lord of the Crows, yeah. It seemed
That's
appropriate. Seemed appropriate for Dartmoor.
Yeah.
It's taken from the men's scriffer, which is down in West Penwith. There's a standing stone there, which literally men's scriffer literally means stone with writing on it, or written stone.
That's scriffer like script, maybe.
Yeah.
Ah, and men as in like a men here, like a.
Yeah, that's men here means long stone.
It was at this point, on leaving Staple Tor and heading over towards Roos Tor, that the first odd moment of the day occurred.
Stop recording.
I was picking Si's brains about where I might best find a hare on Dartmoor, something I'm planning for a later episode, when I practically stood on one. It, haired off into the mist before I could get it on film, but it was a very strange moment, almost as if we'd summoned the creature somehow. It was at Roos Tor where Si got out the iconic Rialobran kettle and we sat down for a chat. How long have you been doing YouTube?
10 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little thing come up from YouTube saying congratulations, 10 years.
All right. I look forward to that. I'm going to try and keep going 10 years so I can get it. I guess with YouTube, is that a positive experience in your life doing the YouTube, or?
No, it's definitely a positive.
Yeah. I guess it would be if you've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah. I started off doing it really for my daughters, so they could see what their stupid old man was getting up to. And I'd seen people, on Dartmoor and on the mountains, and I thought, I can do that. Yeah. I was at a loose end. I mean, I was walking and camping anyway, but just thought it'd be a good little hobby. I've always been into nature and the wildlife as well. So as we saw the hare earlier, it was it's a great feeling, isn't it, to see something like that. And one of my best feelings, it was not very far away from here actually, was seeing a peregrine sitting on a rock. Yeah. And it was just sat there on the rock, and it was lovely. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Are there any negatives to like doing the YouTube stuff, do you think?
No, I don't think there is really. I've met some really nice people, yourself included,
Oh, thank you very much.
doing YouTube from all over the country.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, sometimes when it's cold and frosty and you're waking up in a tent, you're thinking, why are you doing this? But no, there isn't really any negatives.
No, that's good. Get the occasional like idiot with sort of comments and things, don't you?
Oh, I'm quite happy to engage with any trolls.
Yeah. I think that's really funny the way you do that, because most people say, "Oh, just ignore them," but you'll be like, "I know who you are."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And of course, you've got Patch and Amanda on the team now as well.
Yeah, Team Patch and Amanda.
How's that sort of changed the channel and the?
Well, I get a lot of cheek.
Yeah.
And a lot of howling from the dog, but no, it hasn't really changed the channel that much. It means I've got to carry a heavier tent.
Yeah, right.
So my Hilleberg won't fit the three of us, but
Right, yeah.
no, other than that, that hasn't really changed the channel at all.
You need to get
It's
Patch
nice
to
have
pull
a
his
bit-
weight. You need
Yeah.
to get a little backpack or
Little
something.
backpack for him, yeah, or a sled.
After our rest, it was time to head across to Langstone Stone Circle, a long, straight, flat march through seemingly endless cloud. I was completely disorientated by this point, and it was a unique experience for me visiting these interesting features, but having no idea how they sat in relation to one another. When the curtain of fog thinned for a moment, it revealed more and more relics from ancient times scattered along the hillside, the remains of farms and roundhouses and reeves.
And history Bronze Age is your sort of favourite, you were saying?
It is my
wasn't
favourite, yeah.
What's the appeal of that especially?
There probably isn't that much known about it.
Yeah.
But also Dartmoor, it's got so much of it up here.
Yeah.
So many villages, and we passed a small settlement on the way here. We'll pass another one in another sort of 25-30 minutes. There were so many people. There were more people on Dartmoor in the Bronze Age than there are now,
Yeah.
and it just there's something so appealing about that, you know.
More people, even with all the YouTubers.
Well, yeah. That you asked what's changed on Dartmoor YouTubers.
Yeah, they've got me filming you, filming me,
I
filming
mean,
you earlier.
even the time that I've been doing it, there are more YouTubers now on Dartmoor.
Yeah.
You're tripping over them sometimes.
Yeah, chasing the big cats and...
Oh God, don't get me started on the big cats.
It was time for our second odd experience. Si and I both distinctly smelt wood smoke, and after reassuring one another that we weren't going to have a stroke, we were left to wonder where it came from. We were far, far from any settlements, and there was no wood for some bushcraft buffoon to burn up there. Very odd. Perhaps it was the ghost of a Neolithic man cooking up his lunch in one of those stone huts. After visiting one of the two possible sites of Clay Tor, it was time for our lunch, so we sat down on the bank of the River Walkham to refuel. Recharged, we pressed on along the boggy hillside of Cox Hill in the search of Sandy Way Pass. In the flummoxing fog, this is the one point at which we stopped to look at a map for a bit of reassurance, and as we were looking, we were surprised by a sound right behind us. A large hound had galloped past a few feet away and dissolved into the mist. We could hear no people, and on the remotest part of our journey, this beast had seemingly come from nowhere. It did pass us one more time a few minutes later, allowing us to catch it on film before it bounded off into the mist, and we didn't see it again. It was an eerie moment to add to the day's collection of oddities. Dartmoor, hey? There's something about the place that seems to conjure strange occurrences. Like the time Si got bitten by a fox, for example.
I just had a tarp over me and a bivvy bag, and I woke up and I thought, what the heck's that?
Yeah.
And I sort of, as I woke up, and I swung my arm really hard, and it hit the fox.
Right.
The fox was actually on top of me.
Right.
And it jumped off, and I sat up, and as I sat up like that, the fox jumped back in and bit me on the toe. It was through a bivvy bag, through a sleeping bag and my wool socks, so it didn't actually puncture me.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'm quite surprised it had a go, actually. You'd think it would just run off. Like, oh,
You
I
would
picked a
think
bit
it
of
would
a
run
fight
off.
here.
It actually, then, because I obviously got up and I had a video camera that was terrible in the dark and a not very bright torch. I'm not one of these that likes all the bright lights.
Yeah.
And I could see it not 20 feet away from me, just staring at me. So I got up and I did scare it off, but for about 20 minutes afterwards I could hear it circling me, and it was like, this fox from hell.
Yeah.
So it was
Were
about
fox.
4 a.m, so I just stayed up then, made myself a cup of coffee and just waited until daylight, and then as soon as daylight came I got off the moor. Just had enough.
You just wouldn't think that, would you? I don't know. You just think they'd be too shy to actually attack you.
They're quite brazen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My tent's not got a proper door or anything. I'm clogging it up tonight. Have you got any other sort of stories of like times you've had a dangerous experience or anything on Dartmoor? Or?
White Tor, where we're going to in a minute. Ant and I were on Ant the Jinx, who appears on the channel every now and again. He will be back this year for anybody that watches this. He and I were camped up on White Tor, and the scariest thing I've ever seen on White or on any tour was Ant dancing around in the morning in his boxer shorts, worried about me, because we'd had some heavy winds in the night, really heavy winds in the night, and my Hilleberg had actually snapped, pole had snapped in my Hilleberg, and I had no idea. I was sound asleep in my tent with I had a bivvy bag, which I always used to use in the winter. Anyway, so I had no idea. But that could have been a lot worse than it turned out to be. But yeah, seeing him dancing around in his boxer shorts, worried about me in the morning, was quite some scare.
Oh no, so no one wants to experience that.
No.
With a sense of relief at having survived the Hound of the Baskervilles, we finally hit the Sandy Way Ford and turned onto the Lich Way, a path from medieval times that was used to carry bodies across the moor to be buried on the consecrated ground of Lidford Church. The spooky weather made it all too easy to picture the squeaking cart hauling its macabre cargo along the track.
We'll start recording. Just come out of the mist, and here she is, Black Beauty.
Squared up to you then. What did you say? What do you call me?
Eventually, it was time to leave the Corpse Way and take a shortcut across Teletubby Land towards the Langstone. This strange field of lumps and bumps stretched out to the edge of view in all directions, although that wasn't so far in the mist, I suppose, and it was difficult to keep a straight path through the mounds. This, perhaps, is how we ended up missing the Langstone, probably only by 100 metres or so, and finding ourselves at the foot of White Tor instead. Oh well, one for another day. The afternoon was growing old, and in this eldritch mist that materialised hares and hounds and smoke, and dematerialised menhirs, I would still need to find a place to camp before it got dark. With this in mind, Si altered course to take a shortcut through some farmland, which would lead us to a valley at the foot of Cox, Roos and Staple Tor. Si rounded up his vlog for his video, giving a number of recommendations for other channels. One thing I've really liked since joining YouTube is the way that it's supportive rather than competitive. And Si really embodies this unselfishness, regularly shouting out other creators and giving them a leg up.
Subscribe button. Carry on, but I don't really care.
What's like next on the channel then? I think you're doing a sort of little series of like good, easy-ish places to camp. Is that the idea?
Yeah, at the moment I'm doing a little series of easy tours to camp, for first-timer tours, if you like. Or for people that are a little bit nervous of the moors, because once we get past this tour, there's literally nothing now for miles and miles and miles. So I can understand why people would be a little bit nervous of that. So my last camp was at Feather Tor, which is probably the most simple tour you can get to. It's almost flat all the way. King's Tor I'll be doing soon, which is a favourite amongst YouTubers, because it's near Fogging Tor Quarry, so they can go and film that, and that's very scenic. But it's a very easy tour to get to, and it's a very scenic tour as well. So I'll do that one. Great Miss, which is the highest tour in this area, another easy tour to get to, but once you're up there you really feel you're in the wilds. So yeah, it's as I say, I'll be doing a series of simple tours. So yeah,
that's brilliant. And like I say, I watch all your videos, they're always great. You've always got something interesting to sort of point out and talk about, and some like cool theories about etymology and history and stuff. And I hope there's going to be another 10 years of them at least.
Well, I do too. I might not be walking quite so far in 10 years, but yeah.
It was time to say goodbye, a moment that a decent filmmaker would have captured.
What a clever person would have done there would have been to film us saying goodbye and everything, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, yeah, but that's too easy.
Bye, mate.
Si left me with some foolproof directions to Staple Tor and the kind offer to rescue me if anything went wrong in the night. And pretty much the second he was out of sight, the mist began to lift. Who's the real jinx, you have to ask? I set up camp under the steeple of Staple Tor and finally got some views over the West Moor. Beautiful. I'd really enjoyed my day's roam with Si, funny, generous, stoic. And I'd seen some great new parts of the moor, even though I still have very little idea how they link up. Now, in the spirit of Si, I'd like to leave you with a trio of shoutouts of my own. Firstly, there's Tweedy Outdoors. Your classic Tweedy video involves him yomping about a historical location in a tweed suit and attempting some fairly ambitious alfresco cooking, washed down with plenty of self-deprecating humour and wine. Always a great watch, and one thing I think gets a bit overlooked with Tweedy is that he's a really good wild camper. No excessive bushcrafting, no faking spooky sounds or stressing about stealth. He just tents up in a hedge and gets on with it. Oh, and occasionally he even makes it down to Dartmoor. Secondly, there's Ratboy with a movie camera. Ed has been on the channel before as my letterboxing correspondent, and that's precisely what his channel is about. Seriously, just when I thought I had the most niche channel on YouTube, Ed had to go and make a channel entirely dedicated not just to Dartmoor, but to Dartmoor letterboxing. His videos are really well produced and they're funny and playful. If you've got any interest in picking up letterboxing at all, his channel would be the perfect place to start. And finally, of course, is the Royal Raven, King of the Crows, Rialobran himself. I'm sure that if you're subscribed to me, then you're already subscribed to him too, but just in case you aren't, you know, get over there. He's a man with his finger on the pulse of the moor, and on top of some great Dartmoor walks and camping spots, there's always some nugget of an interesting theory or a bit of history or etymology in his videos too. And he's got the supporting cast of Amanda and Patch now too, so even better. Anyway, it's time for me to stop waffling, eat some impossibly spicy noodles, and get some sleep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Catch you in a mo.
You know where his name comes from?
No, do you know, I was going to ask him that so I can really impress him by knowing it if you tell me.
Yes, the men's scruffer.
The men's scruffer?
Which means that it means inscribed stone in Cornish.
Oh right, wow, what a coincidence.
And it's on, oh god, like right in West Cornwall, one of the downs there where there's loads of stuff.
Yeah.
One of these, and it says Rialobran Cuno Valley Filly,
Right.
which is basically the royal raven, son of the famous warrior.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very cool.